You are still watching 101 with Tracy. This video today is still about writing introduction, but this time we'll focus on paraphrasing. If you've watched my previous video, I mentioned there that the introduction for some only has two parts. It's because the IELTS experts only recommend to write the paraphrasing directly instead of general statements. Of course, this is because paraphrasing is the part where you would show to the reader that you have truly understand the task. As they say, this part is a make or break part. What exactly is paraphrasing? Paraphrasing is when you express the meaning of the task in different words. In this time, we would say that it's your own word. In paraphrasing, you have to remember two things, okay? Number one is you should not copy the words used in the task. Well, don't take this literally because I don't mean all the words. Because there are some words that do not have direct replacement. So, what I mean by do not copy the words used in the text, I mean only those words that can be changed. The second one is you should not change the idea of the task. Well, although you are using different words, still make sure that you are keeping the idea of the task. Sound easy? No? Do you know that this part is detested by a lot of students of IELTS? Because this is, for them, difficult. And they ask this question, teacher, how to paraphrase? So because I kept on getting this kind of question from many of my students, so I devised, again, some ways to teach them how to paraphrase. The most common way is to use synonyms. Synonyms are words having the same or nearly the same meaning. In this way, you only keep the sentence structure and just change some words. Let's have an example. Some people think that parents should teach their children how to be good members of society. Here we'll only be changing the words some, people, think, teach, good, and the word society. Now, for some, we are going to replace it by the phrase a certain number of. For people, individuals, think, believe, teach, educate, good, upright, society, the community. So the new sentence will be, a certain number of individuals believe that parents should educate their children how to be upright members of their community. As you see, we did not change all the words like parents and children because not all words should be changed. If you replace parents with mothers and fathers, it is not natural sounding, while if you replace children with kids, it is informal and non-academic. Also, be careful not to use similar words. It should always be words that have the same meaning. Let's say the word teenagers. Some students replace this word with the phrase young people. But do you know that it's wrong? Young people by definition are people between the ages 18 and 30. So, using young people to replace teenagers is not correct. Instead, you should use teens, adolescents, and number 3, if you really want the phrase young people because it sounds good, you write young people between the ages 13 and 19. The second method is to change the word order. Before anything else, let's classify some sentences into having two clauses and sentences with prepositional phrases. Let's start with the former, sentences with two clauses. The sample sentence task is, when cars and cyclists use the same roads, there are often problems. Our two clauses here are, when cars and cyclists use the same roads, which is a dependent clause that has a subject and a verb but does not have a complete thought, and there are often problems, which is an independent clause which has a subject and a verb also and a complete thought. This is commonly known as a sentence. With a task having two clauses, you just have to change their order. In this example, you simply put the independent clause first, followed by the dependent clause. So it becomes, there are often problems when cars and cyclists use the same roads. As you see, there's no need to use a comma now to connect the two clauses. Now, let's apply the first method using synonyms. There are often problems when cars and cyclists use the same roads. We're going to change often, problems when cars and cyclists use. Let's change the words. From the word often to oftentimes, problems to issues, when to so long as, cars to private vehicles, and to as well as cyclists to bicyclists, use to share. So our new sentence is, it is said that there are oftentimes issues so long as private vehicles as well as bicyclists share the same roads. There is a phrase I added here. It is said that. This is just added to ready your readers about the topic. This is also a memorized phrase. Let's move on to the sentences with a prepositional phrase. What is a prepositional phrase? Well, simply, it is a phrase that starts with a preposition, like in, on, during, and etc. The sample task is, scientific research should be primarily funded by governments instead of commercial companies. Here, we have an independent clause, which is scientific research should be primarily funded by governments. And our prepositional phrase is, instead of commercial companies. Just like what we did with the task with two clauses, we just have to change the order. It will now be, instead of commercial companies, scientific research should be primarily funded by governments. Then, let's apply the first way. It will be rather for instead of, ought to for should, private companies for commercial companies, chiefly for primarily, financed for funded, states for governments. The final paraphrase sentence is, it is said that rather than private businesses, scientific researches ought to be chiefly financed by the states. If you don't like the phrase financed by the states, this phrase can be written in one word, an adjective, which is state-funded. The third method is to change word form. Paraphrasing does not only mean to really find words that have the same meaning. When you change the word form, for example, in a task, they use the word as a noun, so in your paraphrasing, you can use the verb form of that word. It is totally okay. This just shows how well you know the word. In this part, we'll still use the previous methods we've learned. Let's have an example. Nowadays, crimes are becoming more violent. Crimes and violent are the two words we are going to use to show this method. The word crimes is a noun, so to paraphrase it, we just have to use its adjective form, criminal. And the word violent is an adjective, and to paraphrase it, we use its adverb form, violently. After this, we will use the first method. Nowadays will be replaced by the phrase at present. The phrase are becoming is changed to are being done. So the paraphrase sentence will be, at present, criminal activities are being done more violently. If you've observed, I included the word activities after the word criminal. It's because criminal cannot stand alone here. It needs to describe a word. And because we use the adverb form of the word violent, it needs to describe either a verb, adjective, or other adverb. So here we use being done. We can also use the second method here by putting the phrase at present in another part of the sentence, like this. Criminal activities at present are being done more violently. Another example to this is the increase in the production of consumer good results in damage to the natural environment. If you change the word increase to its adjective form, you just have to add D. While for the environment to become adjective, we had the al suffix, so it becomes environmental. We now apply the first method also for these words. Good results in and damage. Good becomes item, results in becomes leads to, and damage becomes degradation. Now, our paraphrase task would be the increased consumer item production leads to environmental degradation. Notice that we don't include some words here. It is because we don't need them anymore. The last method I came up is the active to passive, passive to active sentences. First, let's define what active sentences are. Active sentences express that the subject is the doer of the action. Example, Ben paints the house. Who paints the house? It's Ben. So, it is called an active sentence because the subject is the doer of the action, while passive sentences express that the subject is not the doer, but the receiver of the action. Example, the house is painted by Ben. Sometimes we just don't write by Ben, so it's only the house is painted. So here, you cannot ask the question, who paints the house? Because usually we know that house do not paint itself. So instead, we give the question, what is painted? And now, that gives us the answer, the house. Some students do not recognize this verb structure by its name, but its structure, which is be plus PP. Okay, let's apply this to an IELTS task 2 question. Let's start first from active to passive sentences. Some feel that countries should produce most of the food that is eaten in their country. Remember, we can only make use of this method if we have an object. So if we change this sentence, it becomes, some feel that most of the food that is eaten in their country should be produced by countries. After, we could use the first method again. Some to mean a certain number of, feel to change to the word believe, most, the majority, is eaten, to is consumed. So the final paraphrase task is, a certain number of individuals believe that the majority of the food that is consumed in a country should be produced domestically. Instead of saying by countries, we use the adverb domestically. Also, the phrase that is can be erased or eliminated here. Next is the passive to active sentences. Our sample task is, nowadays, more tasks at home and work are being performed by robots. So more tasks at home and work is our full subject and our being performed is our full verb. If we transform it, it could be, nowadays, robots are performing more tasks at home and work. So, let's proceed to the first method. Currently, to replace the word nowadays, robots to robotic devices, are performing to are fulfilling, task to duties. Note that the verb we should use here is be plus verb ing because in the task, it uses a present continuous passive verb. Make sure to retain the same tense, okay? So, our final paraphrase task is, currently, robotic devices are fulfilling more duties at home and work. This is my last task. In this task, we'll be using all the ways we've learned. When I say all, I mean all the four. Yes. So, here you go. The use of social media is replacing face-to-face interaction among many people in society. Our paraphrase task is, in society, the traditional face-to-face communication is being replaced by social media. We have four things here. Like number one is the in society. In society here follows the method change word order. The word communication here follows the method the use of synonym from the word interaction to communication. And then replaced here is using the method change word form. It is from a verb ing in the task to the PP in the paraphrase task. And the last but not the least is active to passive sentence. So as you see, our example task is an active sentence and we changed it into a passive sentence. Plus, we have an additional vocabulary which is traditional. Please, students, make sure to keep a vocabulary notebook with you. List down all the words that you usually use and look for their synonyms before you take an official test. Before concluding this video, I am going to leave you with this sentence. Don't aim for range until you achieve accuracy. Well, for vocabulary and sentence structures, these can still be learned and memorized. But the most important thing here for you to do is to paraphrase the task accurately. I know you have learned something in this video, and I hope you keep watching my upcoming videos. The next we'll talk about the theses and outline statements, and I know this will be meaningful video for you. So please click like and share to your friends. See you on my next video.